I took a photo of me wearing this hat the other day and it turned out quite cool, but as you can see, it doesn't look cool like most of the time. It was just that one photo. So yeah, 80 baht from Mr. DIY, one of the finest shops in the world. I love it. What we're going to talk about today, we're going to go from the foothills of the Annapurna range to the lakes of Connemara via God's greatest sandwich. Let's see how it goes. I love this lake. I love most lakes. I don't think I've been to a lake that I didn't like, and I've been to a few that I adored. One of the most amazing kind of dramatic ones I've been to is at the beginning of the Annapurna range in Nepal. There's a place called Pokhara, and the town is built, or the village, I don't know, it's pretty big. It's built on one side of the lake, and on the other side of the lake they couldn't build anything because of the gigantic mountain emerges from it, which is quite common in that area of the world. There is one building on that side, and there's a kind of little beach, and there's a hotel there that's more like a rickety guest house and cafe called the typical Nepali guest house. And the last time I was there is before Google was invented. But wow, what a great bit of SEO that was. The naming of that place, typical Nepali guest house. So I'm sure they're number one on the Google searches now. But this was pre-Google. Well done them. They served what I believe could be the greatest meatballs in the world. But I did eat them having smoked quite a lot of Nepali weed. So they could have just been pretty ordinary meatballs, you know. But that stoned, it was like, wow, these are the greatest meatballs in the world, man. So, yeah, other lakes. I'm going to talk about Connemara. Connemara is beautiful, and if you ever get the chance to go and drive around Connemara aimlessly, do so. You will not waste any minutes doing that. And whilst we were over at my favourite ex-girlfriend's mum's farm, we decided to go for a drive around Connemara. And the neighbour woman had given us a poached salmon. That's not a salmon that had been poached in water. It's a salmon that her husband had stolen from land where he wasn't allowed to take the fish from. So proper poached are more delicious. So I baked it, and I baked it in the range. Now, a range, for those who don't know, is a big cooking contraption, very common there, fired by peat. Not a person, the stuff you dig up from the ground. And it can also, with a series of pipes running through it, from it, will heat the home as well. And they are brilliant. There's always a kettle on the top of one of them, and they're never turned off. And what happens when you cook in a range using peat especially is that some of the smell of the peat, the flavour of the peat, gets into the food, a bit like if you've had an Islay malt whiskey from Scotland and they say, oh, you can taste the peat, and you definitely can. If you know what peat smells like, you can taste it. And so so I baked this fish that had absorbed some of the flavour of the peat. We had some home-baked bread that was also made in the range. And Mary's grandma, Kitty, actually churned her own butter. So those were the sandwiches for the trip to Connemara. Freshly baked bread, home churned butter, baked poacher's salmon with a little sprinkle of salt. And if they serve sandwiches in heaven, those are the sandwiches they serve. Nothing fancy, no sauces, no exotic ingredients that they never have at Tesco's. Just that. Bread, churned butter, and salmon. pinch of salt. Absolutely sublime. We headed off around Connemara, and I said to Mary at one point, every time you turn a bend here, something different happens. You see something really different. And she agreed, and we turned a bend, and a Garda stepped out in front of us and stopped the car. So I wound the window down, and I said, well, what seems to be the problem, officer? As you do. He said, they're doing the filming. As Mary translated, they're doing filming. I went, oh, okay. They're filming in the field. They're filming in the field. No, the field, the film. The film is the field. And this went on for about another half a minute before Mary said, oh yeah, they're filming the book, The Field. They're making a film of it. And I was like, fantastic. So anyway, eventually we were waved on, and we drove into the village where they were filming. It had been turned into a film set. There were big lights everywhere and important people with clipboards running around looking important. And we spotted a pub, so we went to the pub. And in the pub, holding forth and being generally very pissed, were Robert Harris and John Hurt. And we ordered our Guinnesses, and we sat down, and we were thoroughly entertained by the whole thing for a couple of hours. It was an amazing day with God's greatest sandwiches and a fabulous memory, and lakes were involved, and it doesn't get any better than that. I love you all. Bye.